talk sleep training. I had 3 sons in 13 months. The first 2, twins. So I had to figure out how to get them to sleep through the night. I was leaving in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning to anchor my show. And so I needed to find a way to get them to sleep through the night. What is sleeping through the night? It's essentially getting a kid to sleep at least a 10-hour chunk of time. Most kids, though, want to sleep 12 hours. 7 to 7 is that sweet spot. I want to talk about sleep training because I think it can be helpful for parents and for the babies. Babies want to sleep. They need to sleep. And parents, you need to sleep as well. So sleep training is one of those things you've got to commit to. It's like working out. If you want to lose weight, you got to commit to a good diet and you got to commit to a workout plan. And if you don't, it's not going to work. And that's how sleep training is. It gets a negative connotation because some people feel like when you sleep train a child, that means you're going to make them cry it out. You're going to force them to sleep when you don't want to. And that's just not the case in our experience. We had great success with getting our kids to sleep through the night when they were 14 weeks old. And that's paid off in dividends. They sleep well now. They understand the need to sleep. They don't go to sleep upset and they're not overly tired. And that's not what you want when you're a parent. And that's not what the child wants either. So I thought I'd talk about how it worked for us. I'm no expert. I am going to bring one in towards the end of this video, so don't go away because she's going to talk about specifics of sleep training and the broader sense of how all families can get to do it at their homes and with their kids. But I'm going to talk about 3 kids in 13 months. I had no choice but to do sleep training and it worked. So first things first, everybody always asks me, when do you sleep train your kids? How do you start thinking about it? For me, it was towards the end of my pregnancy with the twins. I realized, okay, when they get home from the hospital, what does that look like? What does that daily schedule, daily routine look like that can help them sleep through the night eventually? It starts when they're this little. So this is actually one of the onesies that the twins wore just about when they were 10 days old, a newborn onesie. And I hold it up because sleep training really starts right when the kids come home. You've got to create good routines, daily routines, and then continue that overnight. So therefore, they know and they learn good sleep habits that will help them eventually sleep through the night. When I think about sleep training, I think of 4 criteria, 4 things, 4 ways to get there, to get your kid to sleep through the night. So let's dive deep into these 4 steps, these 4 criteria for sleeping through the night. Number 1, the baby needs to be 12 pounds. So when a baby's born, it's very rare for a baby to be 12 pounds, but you do hear of babies who are almost like 10 pounds when they're born and they end up sleeping through the night at 4 or 5 weeks because why? They're big, they're good to go. Once a baby gets close to 12 pounds, you'll start to notice that their sleep time, their duration of sleeping, both overnight and during the day for naps, gets longer. And that's a great thing. Their bellies are full, they're big babies, and they're able to sleep longer than a smaller baby. So I always tell people when they ask me, oh my gosh, my baby isn't sleeping through the night. She's 3 months old and we're not there yet. And I say, how much does she weigh? Well, she's a little baby. She only weighs 11 pounds. You're not quite there yet. So 12 pounds is where I found was the real sweet spot for when a baby starts to make that turn into being comfortable with stretching their sleep overnight. It's just like a random magic number. Not exactly sure why it works, but from experience and talking with other people, 12 pounds is your magic number. Step number 2 to helping your baby sleep through the night is the daily agenda. It's so important what happens during the day and how much they sleep and eat during the day influences how well they're going to sleep at night. So what did that daily agenda look like for Andrew and for Colin and for Matthew? It was the same damn thing. We subscribed to the Baby Wise method. So I fed the kids at 7 in the morning, 10 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, and 7. 7 p.m. at night was this bedtime routine. We made it something. And when they were 8 weeks, I didn't really think about creating a real routine at night that included a bath every single night and a bottle until they were 8 weeks. It gave me some time to kind of collect my body, get myself back in the right mindset. And then at 7 p.m. every night, we did a bedtime routine. More on that in just a minute. That daily routine though, 7, 10, 1, 4, 7, it was something we committed to. So at 7 a.m., if they weren't up around 7 or 7:30 every single day, we'd wake them up. Why? because we wanted them to get on a schedule where they also then started to fill their bodies up. Remember, it's all about gaining weight. It's all about consuming 28 ounces between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And it was super important for us to get them on that schedule every single day. So what would it look like? We'd feed them a bottle at 7 a.m. We'd let them play. And then around 8:30, 8:45, we'd swaddle them up and we'd put them down to nap. And that happened at every point of that day. So 7, 10, 1, 4, and 7 o'clock at night, the bedtime routine. The only difference there with the bedtime routine is once we were 8 weeks, we subscribed to a bath every single night and kind of helped give them that mindset like, this is different. Like, we're getting a bath. We're kind of reading a book. We're getting a bottle instead of the breast. And that helped them recognize that time was different. I might be able to sleep a little bit longer, and they sure did. So from the beginning, right when they were born, we subscribed to that 7-10-1-4-7. Now, I totally get it. There are days that it's not going to work. One of them didn't want to take the nap after, the 1 o'clock feeding and played and lost his mind and he wanted more earlier. It's just a roundabout idea that at these times and 5 times a day, I was feeding those babies. Baby Matthew, though, for example, he was a big guy. So he kind of wanted like 5.5, 6 feedings during the day. But I still made sure that there was that bottle or the breast. There was that playtime, tummy time. I mean, they can't really do anything. And then there was a nap by themselves in their crib, swaddled up, sound machine. I totally believe in the sound machine, and I've got a great one that we used for all the kids, and we still use it to this day. It's that signal to them again that it's time to go to bed. The swaddles that I loved, I'll be sure to link those in this video too. All of that is so important. Nothing is more important than creating a routine for babies. We like routines in our daily lives. Most of us do the same thing nearly every single day, and they want it too. It's predictability. It makes them comfortable. It makes them confident. After all, you just threw them in this crazy world with all these lights and all these sounds, and you got to give them something that they can predict, and that's that routine. That daily schedule is so important. And then overnight, what happens in those early weeks, you do the exact same thing. So 7 p.m. at 8 weeks, even though you really try to create a nighttime routine that involves a bath and a bottle and maybe a song, we sing the same song every single night at nighttime routine so the kids know, hey, it's time to go to bed. 10 p.m., then they would eat. 1 a.m., then they would eat. And 4 a.m., they would eat. And then you'd start that day over at 7. It sounds crazy. I totally get it. Some parents say, nope, that's not for me. I'm on the go. I'm taking them to Starbucks. I'm taking them to my friend's house. I'm doing this, doing that. Or I've got a nanny and the nanny's not wanting to commit to that. No judging at all. But this does work. And that's my feedback today. It really does work. And it can be helpful for the babies and for families. So the 7-10-1-4-7 daily schedule that mirrors exactly that at night is how you're going to get your baby to sleep through the night. One more note on this daily schedule that's super important is once you hit 8 weeks and they've gained that weight and they understand the predictability of the schedule, they start to really figure out, at least in my experience, again, all I can come on here is my experience, that they realize they can start stretching at night. So it does look a little different. You do the nighttime routine at 7 o'clock that involves the bath and the bottle and the singing, and you turn that sound machine on and you let them go. We'd see how long would they sleep. Sometimes they slept 4 hours instead of like that 3 hours, and you could get it. And eventually they just start stretching. How will they stretch and how will they really get to 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. for them to sleep through the night? The number three way to get your child to sleep through the night is to make sure they're consuming 28 ounces between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Let's dive deep into this one. 28 ounces. Maybe it's a random magic number, but I noticed it with both of the twins and I noticed it with the baby. Once they were able to consume that much formula, that much breast milk, they were able to really make those stretches at night that help them sleep through the night. I gotta say, that might sound like a lot to some families and some parents who have a child who just can't seem to get more than 4 ounces in those daily bottles, and there's 5 of them. 4 times 5 is 20. That's a little bit far off. This guy, little collie, he had horrible reflux. He'd eat something, throw it out. So what happened? He took a little bit longer than Andrew to consume 28 ounces during that period of 7 to 7. So it took Colin a week or 2 more to really sleep through the night than Andrew. And that's totally normal. Each child is different, but once you get to that magic number of 28 ounces between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., you'll start to see a big change. The biggest question I get about sleep training and that point about consuming 28 ounces between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. is the idea of, can you do that with breast milk versus formula? I exclusively did breast milk for the kids for the first 8 weeks. And with the twins, I was producing 40 ounces at 8 weeks, and it still wasn't enough to feed them. So we did formula. We always added formula on top to make sure that they were full. In my humble opinion, it's more important to make sure your baby's belly is full than it is to try to figure out if you've got enough breast milk or you don't want to put formula in their bellies. I think they just want to eat. We're happier when they're full. And that was my goal, to make sure my baby was gaining weight, make sure they were sleeping well, and of course, making sure they were safe. One of my favorite resources when we talk about feeding your baby is this book, Moms on Call. It's Basic Baby Care. They have a whole area in this book about exactly how many ounces your child should be consuming at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. I know the pediatrician's office sends those sheets out every time you go and you get a weight check, but this book makes it really easy. And so, for example, your child's 3 months old, they should be consuming between 4 and 6 ounces per bottle of either breast milk or formula, or even a combination. I would do combinations a lot because I couldn't produce enough breast milk for twins. I was producing 40 ounces a day and it still wasn't enough. And I also still just wanted to give them a topper. I wanted to make sure they were full. I didn't ever want to go to bed and think, is my baby hungry? So that's why I did formula, just to make sure that they were full. So that 28 ounces, that's such a big thing for your child. And you've got to get them there between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. before they're really going to be able to sleep through the night. And finally, the last little tidbit, again, about sleep training is, I don't think it's a good idea necessarily to follow anything I've talked about today if your child has an allergy or if they have a medical condition. I have no experience about that. And the moms that I've worked with over the last year or so about sleep training, I've told them that. If they've got a kid who's allergic to something, I just don't have the experience there. So that's my disclaimer, my 4th point about sleep training. And those kids, it may take them a little bit longer to sleep through the night because they've got a bellyache and they're dealing with that and trying to work through it. And so that's just not something I can speak on. My final thoughts on sleep training before I bring in the expert to talk about it. Not every single day is going to be perfect. There were days that I could not get the kids on the schedule. It just didn't happen. They were either really fussy, they were going through a growth spurt, they were mad, they just weren't having any of it. But you just start over. Every single day is a reset. 7, 10, 1, 4, 7 for us, and making sure and focusing on getting them to consume whatever was in the bottle at that point in their life. If the bottle needed to be between 4 and 6 ounces and little Colin took a while to drink it because he had reflux, you got to have the patience to get there. The sleep training foundation needs to be there when babies are this little. I'm talking newborns. You can't really try to start sleep training after. You can maybe make up for it, but it's got to start from the beginning. Not every day's perfect, but you can get every day to be better than the last and work on that routine and making sure they consume those 28 ounces and getting to 12 pounds every single day. Again, sleep training, it totally is a commitment. I'm not going to judge anybody for not doing it, or I'm not going to give people a gold star because they do it. But it did work for me and my family, and that's what this whole thing's all about. I'm all about sharing confidence, gaining confidence from other people, and inspiring confidence. But I probably don't have all the answers. And because I don't, I brought in an expert to help us fill in the gaps. And here's that expert, Sunita Evans with Multiples Made Easy here in Indianapolis. Sunita taught me how to sleep train the twins. We needed Sunita's help. There were twins waking up in the middle of the night. I was leaving in the middle of the night to go to my TV show. And so Sunita taught us about sleep training. And I thought she would share a little bit today about the misconceptions of sleep training. I think the biggest problem with sleep training is that people think it's a selfish thing, that parents are doing it because they want that 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. break from their kids. And I remember you telling me when we sat down for the first time, that's just not true.
Right. A lot of babies are better able to adapt to their environments. They're less fussy. They are able to have longer attention spans when they're well rested. So often parents are guilted into feeling like they shouldn't sleep train because they just don't want to have to get up during the night. But it's really part of your baby's overall health.
Misconception that I hear from people is that their kid just can't do sleep training. It's not for them, that it doesn't work for their kid. And not saying that it might not work for every child, but your argument is you got to try, right?
Right. And I feel like a lot of families wait for their baby to be older. They feel like they have this small baby that isn't capable of sleeping well. And so they wait for them to become 6 months or 9 months, maybe even wait till they're 1.
Because they want to cuddle the baby. They want to hold the baby. They want to like give the baby what they need the minute their baby starts crying, right?
Exactly. And that is something I feel like they don't just grow out of it. It isn't something that they just naturally will become a great sleeper when they turn 1 or when they're 18 months. I know several families that have babies who are, well, they're not babies, they're toddlers, and they're still not sleeping well, which in turn turns into a grade school child who may have poor sleep habits, and then teenagers and adults who have sleep trouble. So it isn't something that just goes away.
And so you're saying it's not one of those things that, and everybody should at least try it, because a good sleep habits are taught.
They are taught. It isn't something that they are necessarily born with. So I've had several families that have taken their baby that has been very wakeful, very fussy, and they have been able to go down a different path. But it does take that intentional effort and some things to do, like you had mentioned, that get you to that point.
And I think the biggest thing for me in that misconception about crying it out, like, so you work with hundreds of families and you help them say, okay, you know, let me take that baby at 1 a.m. in the morning and feed them and swaddle them and swoosh them and turn on a sound machine and let them figure it out for a little bit on their own. That doesn't mean you let them wail and go apeshit in their crib, right?
Right. So a lot of our babies, we find, have little to no crying. And the biggest part of that is your timing. So a lot of babies that are overtired, overstimulated, you're waiting too long to put them down for naps. Mm-hmm. They are not at a point to go to sleep easily and stay asleep. So when you're missing that good window, you are signing yourself up for more crying.
I remember when you told me that, you know, you got to make sure that you get there before all pandemonium breaks. And with the twins, it was like crazy, because if they both started losing their mind at the same time, I mean, you almost lose your mind in that exact same moment as well. So it was super important for me to recognize, okay, as I'm getting to know this little human, there's your little sign to me that you're too tired and you need to go take a nap. But I think another misconception, or something that you remind people of, is babies need to learn how to do it themselves, right? I mean, you want to be able to let them, put them in their bed and let them soothe themselves. I remember you telling me that, let them soothe themselves. And I thought, okay, but they're crying, they need mommy. You don't think that's a good idea?
Well, there is, you know, responding to your baby, of course, but there is the other part of that where if you always respond to them the first minute that they cry, you will never know if 100%. They will self-soothe by minute 3 or minute 5. And some babies have that sweet spot where they have the same amount of time where they just need to kind of work it through a little bit, and then they are good. And so it's not about that you're ignoring them or neglecting them. It's you're meeting their needs, but you are doing so in a more predictable way, and you're not short-circuiting their progress by instantly responding to them every time they fuss.
I love that, because I remember you telling me that. And then in the Moms on Call book, which is the book that I recommend that I also use to kind of help me figure out this whole sleep training thing, in the book, they actually say, you know, at 8 weeks, this is how long you let the baby kind of fuss or cry. And then at 10 weeks, this is how long. So they're minute increments at a time. You're not letting the baby cry out for 15 minutes at 8 weeks. That's absurd.
Yeah.
That's not what sleep training is about. It's about letting the baby learn how to sleep. So, Nita, anything else that we should know about sleep training in terms of things that maybe I missed or didn't cover that we should make sure that you share with all of our friends?
I think I would just like to emphasize that sleep is just as important as feeding your baby. And so as much as you need to plan for feeding your baby when you go out somewhere or feeding your baby when you're on vacation, you need to plan for your baby's sleep as well. And that is part of that commitment. But it is important to their growth, to their development, and ultimately to your success in sleep training them.
There you go. Zanita Evans with Multiples Made Easy. How great is that? So an expert who's helping us figure out, I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, she swaddled the twins, held the twins, changed the twins' diapers with me. I mean, it was a real team effort. And we got them to sleep through the night. We did. 14 weeks.
Relatively painlessly.
It was relatively painlessly. I mean, and I had to go back to work. Zanita was a lifesaver for me. And I hope that the sleep training video helped you out. And please subscribe on my YouTube channel as well. And follow me on social media and on my blog at NicolePence.com. Zanita, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Sleep well.